Well, Jacqui, it's lovely to have the chance to talk to you kind of in person down the line, and congratulations on making it onto our finalist shortlists. How does that feel? I mean, after all the effort that you've had to put in.
It's amazing recognition, not just for me, but the whole team and the participants to feel so, appreciated for what they all achieve. It really is a team effort and fantastic.
Well, I grew up on your doorstep in and around Abberton, so I know the area very well. And I'm interested in the connection between service personnel as well, in terms of the kind of coverage that you offer to many of those who come to you.
Yes. So obviously Colchester is a garrison town. It's one of the largest garrisons in the country. And we were asked by the Colchester Garrison, the Personnel Recovery Centre, to start working with their wounded and injured service personnel who are being in the process of discharge, really struggling with PTSD, but also physical illnesses, to try and help them reacquaint with normal life and the civilian sort of outside, but in touch with nature as well. So Help for Heroes were pulling out. We were able to step in, that was 4 years ago, and it's just grown from there. And now they've asked us to add in a resilience training for earlier on as well, to really get to some of those key mental health issues before they begin to be discharged. So retention.
Now, the challenges that many of those individuals that you described face, you will understand well from your own personal experience. Just talk us through, if you can, briefly, the kind of uphill battle that you've also had to win.
Yeah, so it was a normal day. I was teaching year 11's maths in a secondary school. It was just before exams, and I had an annoying contact lens. I decided at the end of the day, I said to a colleague, I've got to get this out. This is driving me mad. And by the next morning, I couldn't see out of it. And it was a rare fungus that came actually from Singapore. I'd never been to Singapore, and it basically ate, and it ate other parts of the body as well. So I lost my left eye, kidney damage, liver damage, nervous system shut down, internal bleeding, 2 cardiac arrests. The skin was falling apart. I mean,
everything. Anyone else would have themselves gone looking for some help from an organisation, and yet you managed to keep going and found an organisation which now helps so many others. In terms of the title, Triumph Over Adversity, you really do tick all of those boxes from every angle.
It was quite worrying when the vicar came 3 times and you realise how close you are to death. And it was very close to death at times. And that really turned everything around for me. And I was determined to make the most then from life and to help other people deal with their issues and their adversities. And we've had so many. I've literally just lost last week one of our key volunteers who worked with us for the last 6 years, who was absolutely an example of that as well. He didn't go out for 20 years before he came to us. And his daughters literally just asked me to speak at the funeral because they said we gave them back a dad for the last 7 years, which they didn't have before. So there's so many people that we've been able to help, not just with my adversity, but with theirs as well.
What gave you the idea to set it up in the first place?
To be fair, I was asked by the County Council and the Borough Council. So Abberton were expanding the reservoir and there was some money, Section 106 monies. I was with a school with Essex County Council and I wasn't feeling that that was right for me anymore, with my partial sight and, sort of having had 9 months rehab. I had to learn to walk again and do everything. So suddenly to be, in that circumstance, and I had a good chat with them. They said, look, we've got this project. Would you lead it? I'd worked with Ofsted and central government before designing education programs. So, I love nature. I've had my own garden. I rented a plot off the council to do an allotment when I was literally 9 years old. So it had always been there, and it was just an opportunity I couldn't turn down. So had to do all of the legal stuff, the setup, organise it in every way, all the proposals and policies and raising the funds, etc.
But it's one thing, isn't it, to go from a career in education But what you've stepped into is something that's far broader, with far many more layers to it. I mean, that must have been a real challenge.
Well, mental health was always something that I was really key on as well, a mental health first aider. And I'd worked as well with a homeless charity and another one helping young families. I'd been a Mackenzie representative for housing law, helping people in court, etc. And I know when I was ill, I came very close to losing everything, not being able to. I'd been in hospital 4 months, rehab 9 months. Suddenly you've got no income for that period. You literally, I had 3 children, 4 chickens, a dog and a cat in basically temporary accommodation for a period of time. It was massive impact. So being able to sort of put all that together and be able to, help. And when people join, they think, oh, nothing's ever happened to you. And then you give a tiny bit of your story and suddenly they're like, oh, actually, you do understand. We deal with so many different aspects, though. I've learned so much more. I was helping for 2 hours one of our participants yesterday with domestic abuse situation for her, ready for her court on Monday. And it's just massive, the impact that we have in so many different ways.
And have you found that the pandemic has increased your workload? Are you busier than ever?
Massively. We've doubled in the last year. I've taken on 3 new staff literally in the last month. We were asked by 7 councils to be part of the response, providing the stay-at-home grow your own packages. Over the whole of the calendar year last year, that was 1,250 families, all that were vulnerable and isolated, and some key workers in there that were struggling. And that made a massive difference to mental health. The evaluation stated 48% hadn't had to go to their GP when they thought they would for medication because of the project. They actually cited the project specifically. I thought that would be 5-10%. So 48% was massive. We've had 94% report improved well-being from it.
And let's face it, if those statistics were attached to a vaccine, we'd all have it. So,
but the best thing, as you know, is getting out in the countryside in nature, being able, even if it's in your back garden, grow your own peas and go out and pick them fresh, that tomato for your salad at lunchtime. There's nothing better. And getting young people, we had 18 to 80-year-olds on that project. It was massive.
But I think for me, you're right, rural skills, having the opportunity to be out in the great outdoors, getting some fresh air, but also re-engaging with a more primeval sense of where we've all come from. I'm often asked by people, what is it about rural life that attracts us? And I often refer back to the notion that if you go back to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, not that long ago in time, we were all rural folk, actually. We all had the resource of the countryside to fall back upon. And I think in offering that reconnection to something which is so crucial to who we are as people and creatures of the world, and animals, if you like, I think it's got to be a good thing. And so many initiatives like this are doing so much to help so many people in so many difficult straits, particularly at the moment. I absolutely commend what you've achieved, and you are sharing firsthand experience. And I think that's so important in terms of leading a project like this and crafting it to fit the many demands that those families, individuals bring to you. So, yeah, you've got my vote. Not least because it's where I used to live. But in all honesty, I do think, for me, nature and the great outdoors, it's such an important part of who we are as people. And clearly it's working. And that's the point, isn't it? It's absolutely delivering on what you set out to achieve as it's evolved.
Yeah. There was 9 that actually attempted suicide at the, before or just before joining us last year. They're walking around today because of what we did. The biggest one that actually the army guys particularly really enjoy is cooking a stew over an open fire in a woodland when you've been doing some coppicing or, other work, making charcoal, etc. And again, it gets into that primeval, as you say, that original sort of way of being and, getting your hands dirty.
The picture that you paint there of a group of individuals enjoying the smell of wood smoke, cooking a simple meal over an open fire, that fellowship for me is what it's all about. And it allows people, I suppose, to begin to unravel in their own minds many of the issues that they face, but at their own pace. but in good company and in the
Yeah.
comfort of support. And that's really what it's about.
Completely. You've got it. You've nailed it. That's really what everything's about. But even, you know, for those long-term unemployed, etc., that we deal with as well, you know, you've got a reason to get up in the morning. It's not, they're not all going to become park rangers or whatever, but it helps them actually be part of a team and part of a community again. And with the counselling and everything, the advocacy support, it just all adds up. I remember when I first started, and you know, the funding we get from core funding, it's just to provide a tutor for 30 people in a room. You don't get any more. So we had to work out how we were going to do everything else, because we knew very quickly that actually that wasn't enough. You've got to give that other support and help, because otherwise they've got too many barriers. You know, if you're lying under a railway bridge, you know, with only a bush for company and a quilt, which one of them was last winter, again, you know, you're not going to be able to go in and learn and have a full brain for education. You've got to take those barriers away. One of my bravest was he'd lost everything. He'd been a manager, senior manager in a role, you know, before divorce and everything, lost the house, lost his job, drink and everything else. He was in a car park in Colchester, St Mary's, and was leaving his sleeping bag and his whole possessions to come in every day because he was determined finally to turn his life around.
Well, Jacqui, I'm beginning to realise that Abberton Rural Training probably found you as much as you found it. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's probably true. It's definitely a passion, the hours and exhaustion and everything else. But when you see the results, it makes it all worthwhile. And if I can save someone, then it makes a difference. And we know we do much more than that. So that's what it's worth.
Well, keep up the good work. It is an inspiring story, and you are helping so many people with so many challenges, and the work goes on. So well done to you, Jacqui. Well done for being a finalist. Best of luck. Yeah, keep it up. Give my best to Essex.
Will do. Will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.